Synagogues in the United States and UK are currently selling off Palestinian land in the West Bank as Israel continues to support violent Israeli settlers who are lynching Palestinians and burning down their homes. The international community continues to fail the Palestinian people as Israel continues their slaughter and they build illegal settlements in the West Bank. Europe is busy writing sternly written letters pretending to condemn the state of Israel as they continue to materially support them as they commit a genocide and annex the West Bank. There are countless videos of atrocities committed against the Palestinians in the West Bank as Israeli settlers torture them, lynch them, and use violence in order to displace them from their lands. Meanwhile, the West, as this is going on, is busy fear-mongering about a rise of anti-Semitism. And as they distract you with that nonsense, also designed for them to grab more state power, you have Zionist institutions and synagogues who are working directly with genocidal settlers in the Israeli state in order to sell off Palestinian lands to Jews for extremely cheap so they can finish the colonization of Palestine.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, welcome back. You know I'm always in the lab cooking, etc., etc. Welcome. This is the atrocities that Israel is committing in the West Bank. I'm at the point where I don't even like when people compare Israel to other evils. I don't even like when people say Israel like the modern day Nazis. Like, bro, we need a new term. Like they are doing some never before seen depraved shit. You know what I mean? I seen a video where an Israeli settler tied a donkey to a truck. It was a donkey that was owned by a Palestinian family that they was currently displacing. A Palestinian family that I'm sure they killed them. And as they were taking this person home, they took their pet, they took their donkey, tied him up to the back of a truck, and tortured it to death by dragging it on the ground as the body bumped through the road. Like, this is some never before seen shit. To me, I don't even think it's proper to even compare it to anything else at this point. The Israelis stand alone and should be the gauge on how we judge evil. Like, hey, bro, you acting pretty Israeli right now. Bro, they are the kind of evil where they would break into a family's home, slaughter the family, and then they will wear the dresses, the clothes of the dead Palestinian girls that they murdered. They will wear the lingerie of a wife of someone who they murdered. They held right to rape rallies, bro. You guys think I'm ever gonna let that down? I'm never gonna let them forget about that. Right to rape rallies. I don't think that's ever been seen before in human history. Right to rape. That's Salem witch trial level crazy. Salem witch trials were a pretty crazy time in history. I'll give you that. But the craziness we see from the Salem witch trials, you get out Israel all the time. And they are slaughtering Palestinians in Gaza. There's been no ceasefire. The West Bank is being seized. Meanwhile, Zohar Mamdani is supporting Hakeem Jeffries for speaker, who is responsible, materially supported Israeli genocide, materially supporting Israeli seizing the West Bank. So I'm seeing Israel commit crime after crime after crime. But if you was to follow the social media of DSA accounts, if you follow the accounts of people who only follow electoral politics, you would think none of this is happening. You would think that Palestine is free, that Benjamin Netanyahu is locked up. You see the euphoria out of the toxic positivity left in the DSA where they're just all smiles. They're doing Blue Clues commercials. As synagogues, like I covered in my hotspot video there, they're financing and funding the annexation of the West Bank as we speak. Jewish institutions. And as this is happening, the good guy, Dr. Abdul al-Sayed, is spending his time condemning Hassan Piker and the DSA bros who elected him because he wants the Michigan Jewish community to know, 1.5% of the population. Yeah, you heard that right. 1.5% of the population. This is the United States left. They pretend that Israel is not engaging in mass slaughter. They're pretending that Jewish institutions is not enabling the annexing of the West Bank. And he's spent his time saying my commitment to Jewish safety is the same as my commitment to the safety of my own daughters. What a pathetic goy. Imagine being this mentally colonized. He spent his time condemning Hamas, Hezbollah, the resistance. He hates the Ayatollah, Iran. He thinks Maduro is a tyrant. And as he condemning the resistance, he wants you to know that he loved the Jews more than he loved his daughter. As much as he loved, what do you mean you are as committed to the safety of Jews as my own daughters? That is insane to say. It is not unreasonable to say that the safety of your daughters go beyond anyone else. I don't have a daughter. I have a niece. None of y'all safety go before my niece. Sorry to let you guys know. To say that you value the Zionists who would never forgive you, who would never give you props for any of this, to try to appease these people as there is genocide going on in Gaza, mass slaughter of people in Lebanon, and unprecedented horrors in the West Bank. How is this anything else other than straight up treasonous behavior? They're the kind of shit you say when you make those like weird ass Blue Clues videos. So this is what pisses me off, because as this is happening, as we're seeing the Zionist regime commit massive crimes, make massive gains, and accelerate the Greater Israel Project, you have these people like Zohran Mamdani and Abdul al-Sayed who is supporting genocide actively right now. And I'm gonna cover the Hakeem Jeffries story here very soon. We're gonna have our guest Aaron Good join us. But I had to cover that hotspot video because the outrage from the United States left regarding the issue of Palestine has been completely quelled. We have seen one of the most successful counterinsurgencies in the modern era. Because to me, and I was just playing this on the timeline, to me, acknowledging that there is a genocide in Gaza while still supporting the people who are responsible for that, that's greatly immoral. But we're going to continue this soon because I want to get Aaron Good's thoughts on this, and we're going to cover how, as this genocide in the West Bank is going on, as Zionists continue to commit crimes, as their institutions continue to sell out Palestinian lands, Zohran Mamdani is still defending Hakeem Jeffries, one of the biggest supporters of Zionism and genocide in Gaza in the world. So what does it say about your soul and your character that you're willing to endorse and support people that you know are committing genocide? And they want brownie points for, hey, don't you know I called out the genocide in Gaza? Meanwhile, you vote for Kamala Harris, like Zohran and all of them did. You support Hakeem Jeffries for speaker. You realize that that's worse than the low info voter who has no idea what's going on in Gaza. That's way worse than the suburbanite wine mom who watched MSNBC and been propagandized into thinking that there's a just war. Let's say someone is propagandized, they tricked into thinking that, oh, there's a war between Israel and Palestine. Oh no, they all religious extremists to me. That's what a lot of liberals used to say. They are religious extremists to me. I don't know what side to pick. It's more morally bankrupt to know that Israel's committing a genocide and still supporting that party than it is to be a clueless wine mom who's a victim of propaganda. That's what I think. But anyway, I'll cover. I will get back to this a little later. I want to cover this first before we get Aaron Good in here because we're gonna dive deep into the Zoran Hakeem Jeffries story. I just want to tie that with the story in the West Bank because I am not seeing the level of anger or urgency from these people who've been lulled to sleep. They promised me they wasn't going to be lulled to sleep by Zoran Mamdani. No, we just want to beat Cuomo, man. We promise we won't go to sleep. These people are not saying anything about what's going on in the West Bank. They're not saying anything about the rise of fascism to defend Zionism that Zoran Mamdani and AOC support. As they supported NATO, as they mourning for Canada. Because I have a few things I want to say about Ukraine, because Zelensky and NATO are pretty much begging not to have elections once again. This is on the eve of a Ukrainian military recruiter killing someone who was resisting their family member being stolen off the street. So things in Ukraine is getting real dire. We're going to do an update on that soon. But I want to start here because you want to know who supports Ukraine? You want to know who completely abandoned the idea of liberal democratic values in order to support a genocidal state of Israel? You want to know who was smearing their own people as terrorists? You want to know who was smearing their own people as anti-Semites in order to defend the genocide of the Trump Netanyahu regime? Canada. Like, bro, we covered the anti-Semitism hoax and free speech crackdown in the United States. Canada is, I wouldn't say as bad as the UK, but they have ramped up the anti-Semitism hoax supported by all the parties. Mark Carney promised he'd crack down free speech. They are tightly regulating social media. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. So Canada is always there to join the United States whenever they implement sanctions, like, on Iran. You know how they supported sanctions on Venezuela? Canada, and I've been breaking it to my Canadian liberals on the timeline, and it has been hilarious. The Canadian leftists agree with me, but the Canadian liberal and conservative is so delusional. We're going to defend our sovereignty from Donald Trump. Fam, you are a glorified 51st state already. Canada supported the United States' war on terror. Send troops to Afghanistan and Iraq. Mark Carney, as he pretended to stand up against Donald Trump, he was supportive of the efforts to topple the Iranian regime. They are diehard supporters of Nazis in Ukraine. They honor the Nazi in their parliament. Canada is part of the Nazi axis. I don't put them with the big boys, with like the United States, UK. No. Once again, this is the 51st state we're talking about. The whole thing about, you guys see how propaganda is done in the Imperial Corps. You know how there's like this myth of Canadians being nice? Bullshit. You know what Zionist Hollywood spread? You know how they always have all these very nice and convenient stereotypes for the allies of the United States empire, anyone who implements Zionism. They want you to think that Russians are evil and tough, violent, unfriendly people. The exact opposite. And then they want to paint Canadians as nice. That you hear that all the time, right? Ask the indigenous population in Canada how nice they are. Ask the pro-Palestine movement how nice they are. The whole thing about Canadians being nice, ask Russians how nice Canada is. In Canada, both parties openly cheer for the death of Russians. They've been fear-mongering for years about how Vladimir Putin and the Russian people are a threat to their lifestyle. You guys see why I'm greatly enjoying this story? Because trade talks between Canada and the United States is falling apart. The United States influence being greatly strained, and now their tariff negotiations fell apart. Now Donald Trump is going all out in attack on Canada. And Canadians have been freaking out. I've been watching a lot of liberal media segments about this. They've been bringing on Canadian politicians like, I can't believe we were betrayed like this. So you're bitching and complaining that you guys are being treated the same way the United States have treated African countries, and you want me to feel bad for you? You know the United States sanctions 1/3 of the world population. You guys part of supporting that. So it's okay when the United States economically starve Venezuela, but when it happens to you Canadians, oh no, I can't believe the Americans are betraying us. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Scott Benson is on video openly explaining how they were manipulating markets and manipulating banks in order to taint the Iranian economy. That's just part of how Western capital is inherently rigged. Meanwhile, Canada cheered it on. They cheered it on, the West destabilizing the Iranian economy. And now your dumbass is a victim of the same empire that you support. Because he thought you was an associate. This is why this is my favorite genre of geopolitics, is stories like these. These people think they're associates. Boy, you a slave. You were given a permission slip by the United States. If the United States really wanted Greenland, they would take Greenland. There's nothing that NATO countries would do about it. The ruling class already been bought off. But here's what Donald Trump said. Canada has been ripping off the United States of America for years. So as you guys were fear-mongering about Russia and Putin being a threat to Canada and their way of life, maybe you should have spent more time focusing on the neocons in the United States. Maybe that would have been a better use of your time. He said on January 1st, 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, and both large and small automotive parts and steel will be increased to 50%. They have no idea what they're doing. So you guys declared all out economic war against Iran, plus anyone who does trade with Iran, which is the global majority. So you declare war on the global majority. Now, at the same time you're doing that, you're provoking an all-out trade war with your larger trading partner in Canada. You would think that someone in the Trump administration would prove Marxist-Lenin is right about them being the accelerist. They're speeding down the path of de-dollarization and the decline of United States soft power and influence. Stuff like this is exactly why Canada is now looking to do more trade and business with China. This is exactly why Canada is looking elsewhere. The same way that Brazil was like, okay, you guys want to put all these tariffs on us because you butthurt that your Zionist puppet, your Bolsonaro laws. Okay, those soybeans that we used to sell you, we're going to start selling them to China. Or we bought from you, we to start buying. They have different alternatives. And Donald Trump's actions is directly harming the United States empire. Which is another reason why this story is hilarious. They have no idea what they're doing. It's almost like they're trying to create a disaster in order to have a reason to implement a police state, which is why to escalate their police state, I should say, which is I think what they're doing 100%. Democrats like we're gonna take over the White House in 2028. Like, bro, do you understand the economic disaster that's about to happen? And what our Zionist ruling class is planning? This here is hilarious. Once again, doesn't feel nice. Doesn't feel nice now, right? Because this is the same thing that you guys have done to African countries, where the United States put immense demands on them in order to qualify for IMF loans and bailouts, you have to implement austerity. They demanded many African countries to cut minimum wage, cut labor programs. They had a lot of terms and conditions that they give to their slaves in the United States colony. They think, once again, they think they're associates. But for a very long time, we gave the Canadians the illusion that they're our brother. And then I love that Donald Trump and the Republican wing of the neocon establishment put these idiots in line and remind them and their population exactly where they stand on the pecking order. And I don't feel bad for them at all, because as you guys was fear-mongering over Iran, Putin, China, you guys supported the United States doing against every other country. Look, President Trump demands Canada change its French language. How you say that? Quebecois culture and the Canadian identity as a condition for reversing tariffs. So a lot of the talks about, bro, like how Canada finally broke because the demand was so steep. The more detailed list of each of the extraordinary demands that the United States inserted, apparently at the last minute. This is subjugation, if not outright annexation. The United States won a veto on any Canadian infrastructure from ports to telegram and power grids. Wow. And Mark Carney is engaged in political theater as always. America is trying to break us so they can own us. They already own you, sir. Bro, Dimitri been cooking, bro. We've been cooking on the timeline on this story, bro, because Canadians are delusional. Do you not understand your position in geopolitics? You really believe that you're sovereign? You see how if you guys would ever had like a socialist, Marxist, Leninist revolution, you would see quickly how fast the United States will fuck you up. If you guys ever decided to leave NATO, this wouldn't happen because your ruling class was already bought off. But can you guys imagine if Canada was like, yo, we're gonna embrace a friendly relationship with the DPRK? Imagine if some RBN sponsored left party took over Canada, won a massive 70% mandate from the population. And then we announced, like, we're going to form alliances with the DPRK. We're going to establish immense trade with Russia and China. We're going to have a visa program where we bring people from North Korea over. We're going to bring people from Russia over. We're going to have a connection between our cultures. You understand how fast the United States will coup Canada? You understand how fast they will murder them? I mean, that doesn't happen because the ruling class was already bought off. Canadian democracy has already been hijacked. They have the illusion of democracy that we've seen so common in the West. So Dimitri is 100% right here. The United States already owns us. I think he's Canadian, isn't he? Based on what he said there. Carney is the same charlatan who proclaimed that the rules-based order was dead and then pursued a foreign policy that is indistinguishable from the rules-based order. So liberals think that Carney is standing up to Trump, but just like all political theater, I got my bullshit detector is at a 10. And when you listen to how MSNBC and CNN present this story about how Mark Carney is his hero, and even I've seen like progressives like, yeah, it's pretty admirable how Mark Carney is standing up to Trump as he's implementing fascism in Canada to crack down against anti-Israel, anti-genocide protests, as he's supporting Nazis in Ukraine, as he's still pursuing the pledge of spending 5% of his GDP on NATO. Hey, Mark Carney, if you were so upset about Donald Trump, with Donald Trump in the United States, why won't you renege from funding NATO and this 5% military budget increase, which you won't? But this is the political theater people are falling for. And I can't wait to get my guests in here. We got Aaron Good, an amazing author, journalist, and educator. I'm going to bring you in here very soon, Aaron. I'm about to wrap the segment up. I would love to get your thoughts on this. We got a lot to talk about. We also want to cover the United States potentially killing the dollar. Because we covering Canada and their trade war against the U.S. allies, which once again, this is a deeply hilarious story to me. Then we're gonna get to Scott Bessent declaring the death of the U.S. dollar, where he's threatening countries who do business with Iran. We're gonna get to that with Aaron Good. So, Aaron, I'm gonna bring you in. Let's play. This is what Mark Carney is saying in response to Donald Trump, and there's the political theory that, even the progressive Democrats are falling for. Yeah, we gotta give up to Mark Carney. He's a great resistance fighter.
Last spring, I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promised that that will never, ever happen. We are keeping that promise. Canada is becoming stronger and less dependent on America. We are already giving ourselves more than they can take away. And we are just getting started.
Oh, sorry, my bad, my audio was off. But this is Dimitri. He was calling this out. Like I was saying earlier, Dimitri been on fire on this story. I've been calling this out. This is all political theater. Just like the beef between Trump and NATO. That was designed, yeah, my bad. My bad. That was designed in order to condition Europeans into supporting austerity and supporting the remilitarization of Germany. Oh no, Donald Trump is upset with NATO because NATO is not doing enough. Hey guys, we had no choice. We got to hit the 5% military goal that Donald Trump laid out. I think it's a good idea, actually. This is what that was Friedrich Merz says. So that's political theater. The same way this is political theater. And Canada is getting everything they deserve now. But Dimitri says if Mark Carney is half the prime minister he claims to be, he'd respond to this latest Trumpian aggression by abandoning Canada's plan to spend 5% on the GDP on military and will reallocate those vast sums into supporting Canadians during the trade war. Great point. Here's a great thread. Despite this, Canada is increasing its military exports to the United States. So as Mark Carney is talking all this shit, he's literally increasing military exports and continuing to buy weapons from American armed companies. Take that, Trump. Liberals, the only thing they can do is enable fascism. They will never oppose it. But I would love to get Aaron Good's thoughts on this. The host of the American Exceptionalist podcast, amazing author and journalist, our friend. It's great to have you back on RBN. How you doing, Aaron? Good.
Good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be able to talk about these things somewhere like this. So it's I'm listening to the Mark Carney business, and like you, he's hardly any kind of revolutionary. It's very interesting that he is having to take some sort of stands and saying things you don't expect from Canada, a Canadian prime minister. I think that reflects the slow recognition of some, geopolitical realities that you're going to see more and more of these things as the U.S. empire and the dollar regime begin to wobble.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely got to get your thoughts on this story because this is what I want to cover next. This is the big news. This is what the Trump regime has been threatening. Now they following through with it. This was inevitable as far as I'm concerned because I knew that based on what the West was saying they wanted to accomplish, and the fact that the Western media and the Western neocons wasn't even listening to the fact that Iran was like, guys, when we said we want our goddamn money back, when we said we want our reparations, we are not bending from this. When we say the Straits of Hormuz is ours, we are not bending from that. When we say free Lebanon, we are serious. And they gave no indication, they have no reason to back down from escalating from the United States because they're also hearing whisperings about the United States munition crisis. They're hearing about their sailors on boats are having a hard time. So they're like, all right, bet, bring it on. So here's Scott Bessent. I want to get your thoughts on this because this is the economic D-Day. And I also would love your thoughts on how you believe the Iran crisis and conflict has been going for the United States and for Iran. But here's a short clip of Scott Bessent. This clip is hilarious because this is essentially him admitting that Iran whooped the United States, and they're begging for help for the world and for China to bail them out. Let's listen to this, and I'll bring you in there.
Condone illicit use of their banks, all the while concealing the extent of their complicity. The president is making phone calls to world leaders with specific requests to cease their interactions with the regime.
How is that not pure desperation? Imagine you got whooped in high school by an op that you started a conflict with, and then in response you tell your friends you can't talk to him no more. That's what the United States is. That's their position. But Aaron, what's your thoughts, man? Once again, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's not different from the standard U.S. playbook for many decades now, which is to try to sanction countries and inflict as much economic pain on them as possible. The problem for them is that all the sanctions that they'd put on Iran over the years, still the outcome was a country that could, crush the defeated the U.S. militarily in a conflict, just as had been predicted by many military experts for quite a while. So this shouldn't be a surprise, but the difference now and in the past between the sanctions regimes that they were hoping to put on, well, I guess there's a couple differences. One is there's a blockade of sorts that will be it'll be interesting to see how effective that can be. But the other one is that they have much more friends in the region. I mean, they can do trade with countries on their borders. There's overland routes that are there. There's rail and other ways that they can get around this blockade. So they're not nearly as isolated. Pakistan is not likely to waver because of Pakistan's alliance and really dependence on China, but in a much less predatory way than what the U.S. has been doing to Pakistan for so long. I mean, you still have the issue of why is Imran Khan in jail? That was a U.S.-backed coup, but beyond that, they seem to be tilting more towards Iran and China superficially, and this reflects a bigger shift overall. So and there are reports that Iran was invited to join the Entente or whatever, the triple alliance between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. And Saudi Arabia and Turkey are very dubious, allies. But when you stop and think about it, the interests of all these nations in West Asia is to have a West Asian political order that is not dominated by white Europeans. Namely Europe and Zionism. So as much as Erdogan seems like a duplicitous and slippery character, all the logic for these countries would be to create a West Asian bloc for West Asia so that they could prosper and not be dominated and exploited by outside powers. So what's going to happen here with this? I don't know. Some people are more cynical about this alliance, and I'm not saying that there's any reason for great optimism, but just every bigger structural geopolitical factor seems to be working against the hegemonic project of the U.S., which is something I've written about. That's what I did my PhD dissertation on, and I now know more about it in some ways than I did before, because I didn't really tackle the issue of Zionism. I basically stopped at Ronald Reagan, and it's not, in terms of the historical narrative, and it's not really until Bill Clinton's presidency, and really, as weird as it sounds, the defeat of George H.W. Bush, who I always regarded and still basically do as a pretty sinister dude, but he because he was a dedicated American imperialist, he understood the threat represented by neocons in the Greater Israel Project. And he sent his Secretary of State to AIPAC in May of 1989, after he'd only been in office for a couple months, and said, it's time to put aside this Greater Israel Project once and for all. Like, he straight up told them that. And then Thomas Friedman wrote about that in the Times, like, even though this is the official U.S. policy, this is not what the crowd was expecting to hear. And Bush, had to deal with all sorts of scandals and this third-party candidacy that was very strange, and he lost in 92. And then Clinton was a very blackmailable guy for a number of reasons. Or he was their guy all along, who knows? But ever since then, it's been all Zionist people who were essentially beholden to this neocon project, and there's been no real effort to rein in this Greater Israel project, and it took over the apex of U.S. foreign policy, and now we're at the point where it's going to be understood that the 21st century misadventures of, kicked off with 9/11 and all these useless wars for Israel, that this has been a disaster, and it's going to bring about the end of Western imperialism. It looks like that now, and it's really an amazing thing to see, even as horrible as it is, in terms of like looking at the Gaza genocide and things like that.
Yeah, like the pursuit of the Greater Israel Project, you can mark that as one of the defining features of what led to the downfall of the United States project. Because despite what dumbass Democrats would like to believe, where they believe that the United States actually really will liberate and free Iran, like that's the narrative they have, and that's why they are always tongue-tied.
There's a lot of leftists too. There's a lot of leftists that won't get it either. They try to say like Israel's very useful for the empire. It's like, that's bullshit. But they have to say that for ideological reasons. I'm not trying to exonerate the U.S. It's the corruption of the U.S. that allowed, Zionism and figures like Lansky and all these different oligarchs to take over the U.S. regime in terms of its grand strategy. But it's like, come on, how much obvious does it have to be? This is a disaster for the U.S. It's not in the U.S. interest to try to like expand Israel's borders and fuck everything else. Just the most important thing is that Greater Israel. It's absurd.
Yeah, because that's what this Iran war is all about. Because this is the point I was trying to make. Because liberals will pretend that the reason why the United States is aggressive against Iran, not because they want to get rid of a geopolitical powerhouse rival to Israel who support the resistance. They would say, "Oh well, we have to because of human rights, right?" Yeah. And then Donald Trump in the West will say stuff like, "Yeah, we're gonna destroy Iranian civilization."
And what do the liberals even think? Are like the U.S. bombs gonna somehow like not hit any transgendered Iranians somehow? Just the bad people? Like it's the liberalism in the U.S. is just beyond pathetic. But it's sad when like the left has its analysis all screwed up as well. But that's I guess what you're used to if you're a Westerner, is the left is kind of a subsidiary of the right.
Yeah, I watch my enemies, man. That's why I'm telling you guys what they're saying, and that's why I catch these DSA people repeat MSNBC shit all the time. I know because I'm watching them. I will watch them repeat narratives about the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime, like Abdul al-Sayed did. Like I will catch them repeating stuff like Maduro's a dictator, like Zoran Mamdani did. And then people wonder why they're saying this stuff. Like, bro, I know exactly where you guys get your news from because I'm watching my ops. And when I'm watching my ops, they see Donald Trump threatening Iranian civilization, and they're like, man, we're having a really hard time squaring this with their stated goal of caring about the Iranian people. And I'm like, hey, dipshit, can you put two together that this had nothing to do with Iranian democracy, as they openly float the idea of installing another king in Iran? And these are the contradictions that liberals have no idea about, because this war is all about stopping the resistance, a large supporter of the resistance, and a check on the geopolitical power of the Zionist project, meaning U.S. foreign geopolitical power, Israel greater political power, the UK, Germany. We know that Israel is a colony for the West to expand influence and power in the Middle East. So expanding the Greater Israel project is greatly in their interest. Also because a lot of these people are dual citizens, and Chuck Schumer openly talked about he had family in Israel. No, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer from the UK. He openly talked about he got family in Israel. So when people ask me like, what is the motive for the people to do this? To me, they only do they have class interest. They have family ties. They have a get out of jail free card known as Israel. Like especially a lot of these Jewish supremacists. But what's your thoughts, Aaron? Do you agree? Disagree?
Well,
anything you want to add?
Weirdly, it does sometimes function as a get out of jail free card for like pedophiles and mobsters. I mean, that's where Lansky, when Nixon went after Lansky, the U.S. finally decided they were going to prosecute the head of the National Crime Syndicate, which was just a monopoly on organized crime. It was really Lansky. The Italian guys are just a myth. And some of the main guys behind getting The Godfather made, The Godfather came out right at the time that just a couple of years at, perfect timing after they went after Lansky, because it was like a PR campaign. It was people like Stanley Korshak, who was like one of the main fixers of the Vegas mob, tied to Hollywood also. Those are the people that got The Godfather made in 1972, because people were getting wise to the fact that, like, hey, this Lansky and Jimmy Hoffa Teamster syndicate is actually, that's really what the National Crime Syndicate is, with money laundering in Vegas and all this. It's not these Italian dudes. I mean, they're a part of it. They're like sort of retail level, but it's actually more of a Zionist thing. And Lansky and Hoffa were as much as anyone, the main people in the U.S. who were responsible for getting all the weapons to the Zionists who stole all that land in 1948. So this is a deeper, more corrupt part of our system than people are really willing to deal with. It gets into, the things that I study. I spent a lot of time on the Kennedy assassination and Iran-Contra and Watergate and trying to make sense of them. And what I've come to realize about them is that it's not like a parlor game of like, ooh, let's unravel the conspiracy. It really gets into the question of the apex of power in this regime, the apex of power that you don't really see because they have that much power. And there's nothing that is more emblematic or, that is a bigger part of this apex power than the ability to just break laws routinely and not have it come back to bite you in the ass, like the ability to launder billions of dollars in Vegas it's like drug money, but then you're like, oh no, it's the casinos. People are doing a lot of gambling, and they were, but it's like you have the ability to fix things that way. Then it's not just a matter of, oh, now you've got some money. It's that you've created a whole network of people who are basically compromised because they're rich because of the criminality. This is how it happened, and it's the bigger issue is how just corrupt capitalism is. There's no higher value to making money, and to make the most money, the best way to do it is to institutionalize some sort of criminal arrangement or achieve monopolies, so you get all these monopoly rents. I mean, this is really this is not a Christian country. Like, Jesus never said anything about like, the thing that you should do is become very wealthy because that's virtuous. He says the opposite. But under capitalism, you can turn Christianity into a religion about making money, because in this society, the money controls everything. It warps our minds. It warps the culture. And so this is what created the playing field where these gangsters, who are basically Nazis, they're remixed Nazis in terms of ideology. I mean, just Lebensraum, master race, Untermenschen that you can exterminate. It's basically totally analogous. So here we are, and we can't. All we can do is watch about it and gripe about it. But beyond just the liberals who are like, the public liberals who say this or that, the actual American people, especially the people who are basically Democrats, like, I think their politics are closer. They're closer to us than to like Apac Shakur, and that's significant. I think like the people are waking up despite getting nothing but propaganda. They still understand the gist more. Like, they're for Medicare for all. They're against sending more money to Israel. This is encouraging, even if there's no real way to make these to translate this political will into policy. I think that it's encouraging, at least, that the American people are not as bad as this regime.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us. And for those who haven't seen the shows I have done with Aaron Good regarding the CIA and JFK, because we had you on a while ago. We may have to do another one because that was such a long time ago. We had a great episode. You guys should check it out because Aaron Good is like an encyclopedia. And I explained on my channel how quote unquote conspiracy theorists, they've been absolutely locked in my entire life. They've been right about everything. They called it, bro. Even the normies, after reading the Epstein files and they saw the flesh eating of children, they're like, God damn, they was right about everything. That was one of the things that people thought he was wrong about. They're like, man, you guys are making a lot of sense. Why you gotta bring up the fact that the ruling class are vampires? Meanwhile, these motherfuckers are fucking vampires.
I don't know quite what to make of that and what exactly they're referring to, but there's enough there to be very suspicious that there is some other horrific stuff going on that they're alluding to. It would be good to have that all brought out into the light. I would hope.
And you also mentioned something, because you speak my language earlier, regarding capitalism. I have a hard time, I just say it outright, and I know it's going to be offensive. I don't take any Christians seriously if they're capitalists. If you're a socialist Christian, I usually vibe with a lot of those people, but capitalist Christians make no sense. Didn't they have a scripture talking about a rich man is more likely to go to heaven than a...
No, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to reach the kingdom of heaven. Something like that.
Didn't that what your book said? Bro, the book mentions how multiple times how they hate rich people.
He went into the temple, and
the
only time that Jesus just started, slapping bitches or whatever, however you want to say it, is he went into the temple and he beat up the money changers. What is more anti, oligarchy than that? It's the greed. I mean, it's just it. It's the way you acquire a lot of money is through exploitation, and that's a part of civilization. And as we get smarter, we can try to correct that, because we generally like civilization, even if it's built on exploitation in many ways. And we should devote our energy, our human energy, into fixing the problems that arise because of our own ingenuity and our own creating, more complex societies and technology. But we don't, but other countries sort of are. I mean, China's solving social problems. That's amazing. It's almost like China does something and Americans are like, what? The government could do that? You could build railroads? And yeah, you can.
They prosecuted their billionaires and rich men.
They execute them. And I philosophically, I don't believe in the death penalty, but there are plenty of times that somebody gets executed and I'm like, yeah.
It's for the ruling class. Hey, laws on the book, man. That should apply to you guys, only you guys. That's how I feel about it. You guys push me too far, bro. I'm not a little liberal kid no more. I'm I oppose the death penalty for... No, I'm sorry, guys. That's one thing they kind of convinced me on. Those Epstein pedophiles, they gotta go. If you get caught guilty doing that, bro, you gotta go. These war criminals, the people responsible for what's happened in Gaza, you gotta go, man. But anyway, sorry, finish your thought, Aaron.
We hanged people after Nuremberg who committed crimes far less egregious than what Trump and Netanyahu have done. I mean, we hanged people who were just German journalists, propagandists. Julius Streicher is a famous one. I mean, by that standard, there are many, many people who have been advocating for genocide, who really should be accomplices to genocide. And if we're going by this precedent that we set after World War II, I mean, you could, people like Mark Levin they'd be hanged for their crimes against humanity. And I'm not saying that's likely to happen anytime soon, but it points to something else that we should worry about. In some ways, when we think about the risks of nuclear war, we don't have any interest in gambling with nuclear war to try to save our bacon or help the U.S. But these oligarchs and the people that have worked for this regime, they worry that they may face accountability, and so it kind of is an existential crisis for them to hold on to the empire. That's something that we should be worried about.
There can't be peace and resolution without justice. This is why I hate liberal Zionists, and liberal Zionists are more nefarious than most people get credit for. Abdul al-Sayed, Zoran Mamdani, all these liberal Zionists that people like, watch how fast a liberal Zionist turn into Ben Gvir if you ask them what you think should happen to IDF soldiers who committed crimes in Gaza. Ask a liberal Zionist. Go ahead. What do you think should happen to all the Israeli politicians who supported the genocide? What should happen to the Israeli settlers who are colonizing the West Bank? I'm way beyond, and this is why the viral speech clip I had on Instagram while I was playing, I'm way beyond free Palestine. I'm justice for Palestine, revenge for Palestine. A lot of people afraid to say that. Revenge for Palestine. They gotta pay. We can't just move on what are you calling for, Nick? Are you saying we should lock up all the Jews? I'm calling for you to lock up war criminals and to apply the law. But go ahead, I think you want to try.
Yeah, I think that if the whole project does disintegrate and collapse, the whole Zionist project, I think that the high officials should be prosecuted by some sort of, open, transparent judicial entity. Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, Netanyahu, the different people who were guilty of crime. I mean, Trump, obviously, Hegseth. I mean, it's hard to even know where to stop with this because it's such a massive crime. I mean, and it's the only thing that you can really compare it to is Nazism because it's so analogous, as I said earlier. So when it flames out, what will you do? And what will they do with the people that are over there? The colonists essentially. Are they people who are even fit to like live in a post-Zionism, post-ethno-supremacist political entity that it might be a binational state or a one state, however it would be? I mean, it's hard to even imagine it. Like, would they go back to their countries and then they'd just be regular white people or whatever, and they apparently can't handle that in the U.S. It's so strange. I mean, the position of it and trying to wrap your mind around Zionism and Jewish people in the United States, so-called like Jewish power, which is like I tend to think of Zionism as being more relevant than like thinking of it as Jewish. I think it's more of a corruption of Judaism, because all the synagogues support Zionism. It's not like you can say like, oh, the religion is blameless, because institutionally it's clearly not. So what do we do with this? I feel that eventually it's going to come, if it does continue as it seems to be, and the U.S. empire is in big trouble and it can't project power like it once did, and Israel is surrounded by enemies who finally are emboldened by the fact that like the U.S. isn't as powerful, then how will we deal with that? But I do think that if it does collapse like that, you're going to get to the point that everybody will be like, oh yeah, I was against this too. It was, after a fashion.
I'm very respectful of people's religious beliefs. Even though I'm not a religious man, never could get into it. To me, it was clear to me it was used to control people. But it brings people great comfort. I don't judge people for it. I'm very respectful of it. God bless my mother, because she's very religious. My family is really religious, and they never pushed it on me. I'm very thankful for her to this day because of that. But despite that, I'm not an edgy like teenage atheist like I used to be. Like back when I was a teenager, I never stepped foot in a church, but I'm not like that no more. I'm very respectful of people's beliefs. But guys, that was contingent on your religion not supporting a genocide.
I mean, you got to think of Zionism as a political project and not so much as the religion. And it wasn't always as crazy. I mean, even under W. Bush, as I understand, now I see clearly that it was really neocons pushing the war, and the neocons were driven primarily by Zionism, right? Now that I understand that, but I didn't understand that back then. And I had a job as a canvasser working for John Kerry, because like that seemed to be like, oh, he was going to beat Bush, and Bush was a war criminal, so that's the only chance to beat Bush. But I was in all these neighborhoods trying to like canvas and raise money for the DNC, and a lot of these were like heavily Jewish neighborhoods, and I knew Jewish people, but not that many. Like one of my favorite professor because I'm from Indiana, and one of my favorite professor at IU was Jewish, a political science guy, and he's much more on the liberal side of things than I even was back then, but he's very smart. So I was familiar. I'd known a handful of Jewish people and had conversations with them, but nothing like this where I was just going door to door and talking to people. Most of them were anti-Bush. They weren't really in favor of the Iraq War. They were mostly against the Iraq War. They didn't see this as being like something great for Israel. Some of them were more on the neocon side of things, but I would even wonder how much of the Jewish population supports the Iran war. I mean, I know they say that like 80% of the Jewish population supports Zionism, but I would really wonder if that is a slight exaggeration if you would really look more into it. But I can't say for sure. I just know my personal experience was I did not meet that many people that were like Mark Levin psychopaths,
Yeah, there's a lot of young Jews in the West who oppose the foreign policy of Israel, the United States, very critical of Israeli genocide. And I believe the best political strategy, especially for the anti-war movement, is to focus on Zionists as a political project. But as a nerd, and this is the educational part of me. Like, once again, there's the political strategy, which makes 100% sense, and then there's the part of me that like to analyze things. You know what I mean? Like when I'm looking at the large amount of the population that believes that they have the right to colonize Palestine, when you listen to the Zionist Jews, and when I think about like these synagogues and what they're teaching them, like the same way that people analyze like what was taught to the Nazis, what was taught to people who support all these atrocities, once again, this had nothing to do with politics, because once again, I understand as a political strategy why people will focus on Zionism. That is smart. Don't get me wrong. That's 100% smart. That's 100% valid strategy. But as a scholar, I'm like, hold up. What are they teaching these people? Like, what is being taught in these institutions that is leading so much of their population to have genocidal tendencies? Isn't that something that scholars should be interested in? Like, if you're like a social scientist, we know that there's anti-genocide Jews. We know that there are anti-Zionist Jews, but there's a large amount of institutional support, and there's these rabbis who say these are crazy, genocidal, Ben Gvir level quotes every day. Ben Gvir, he gets all the media attention, but he one of the most honest ones. But these rabbis, they say crazy stuff all the time. So, like, as a scholar, I'm like, bro, what are they teaching? What is going on that is leading so many people to reach a genocide conclusion, which I think is an interesting case study. But I do think focused on Zionism as a political strategy is extremely smart, especially if you're someone who has a target on your back. You gotta believe your own analysis, bro. Like when I say that the UK is a fascist state, you have to believe it. Like if you support Palestine, you gotta move in a way where you're not gonna be destroyed and crushed by the state. Like you're not gonna do the movement good in prison and engaging in revolutionary adventurism. You have to understand what the ruling class will do to you and be cognizant of that. And so if you're like a Palestinian in the UK, that's my point I was getting to. Maybe you don't say what I just said. like once again, I understand. Like Hamas is a political organization, and they support a two-state solution. We explain all the time why the one-state solution is the proper goal. But Hamas is a political organization. They had to make calculated decisions. And if you're a Palestinian in the West, you're being financially threatened. They will threaten your life. So, fam, I understand the need for many people to engage technically. That's why it's up to goys like me. It's up to people like me who not under the threat of a gun, like many UK doctors and many Palestinian brothers and sisters, who, if you were a Palestinian, if you had the same beliefs I do on Gaza, they will label you a terrorist immediately. So they got to move differently than we do, you know what I mean? But anyway, Aaron, anything you want to add before we move on? I want to get to Hakeem Jeffries and Zoran before I let you go.
I think as far as strategies go, and I don't have any political master plan that I would get even mad about. I'm actually sympathetic to people who support DSA candidates or third-party candidates, or people who say that there's the whole voting system is so corrupt and bought off and anti-democratic that to even vote is to legitimize it, you know, in a way, and so you shouldn't vote. I'm actually sympathetic to all those arguments because there's a question of like, what do you do when there's nothing you can do? And if people have different answers for that, I can accept that. And I also understand, as you were alluding to, that you have to accommodate reality and power in some ways, which means either you don't say what you think or you take some weak positions on something because you think maybe it helps the greater good. I kind of understand that. You study the Kennedy assassination and his presidency, and you realize how much he was trying to avoid nuclear war. And then you think, okay, well, his caution on other things. I mean, you couldn't be Che Guevara in this system and come out and say that. You had to deal with political reality, and he tried to do that, and he did it well enough to be very popular with the American people, and yet a threat enough to the establishment that they would kill him in a ridiculously implausible scenario that, like, the more you looked at it, you're like, nah, that couldn't have been that dude, and it really had to be the U.S. regime that did it, because only the U.S. regime could do it and cover it up like this, right? So these are harsh things to consider. What I will say is relevant is that what happened beginning in the mid 90s as a result of many conspiratorial and long-running campaigns to manipulate U.S. politics is that the neocons succeeded in intertwining the U.S. grand policy for hegemony with Greater Israel Zionism, meaning that the petrodollar and the way that the dollarized world was tied to energy economies and the hydrocarbons of the Persian Gulf to be protected by the U.S. and basically accepting a Greater Israel expansionist policy complete with wars that'll take down all the regimes they don't like these things were intertwined. And so if you're on the left and you're thinking like, well, Zionism isn't what I worry about capitalism because that's the real problem, which it is by and large, but Zionism is so evil that you can't really tolerate it or accept it or have any patience or sympathy for anybody who tries to apologize for it or argue for it at all. So you should oppose them both, and if not, you're morally and intellectually deficient at this point. In terms of like the imperialism and Zionism in general, right? Those are two things you should just oppose because for law and morality reasons. However, if Zionism and the Greater Israel Project collapses and the U.S. is kicked out of West Asia, it actually will take the empire. If not taking it down with it, it will weaken it to the point that it can be basically transcended by this emerging global majority led by China, along with Russia and Iran now, as major pillars of a world more based on international law and win-win relationships between countries and nation states pursuing their real national interests, which is to take care of their own people and to have a sustainable economy and deal with problems like climate change and other threats facing humanity. People could be doing great things to solve problems and making the world a much better place. And if we just stopped organizing our own society around making sure that this class of predatory, rapacious oligarchs are just always on top forever. That is such a bullshit way to organize a society and to create a whole political cosmology where we have to believe all these stupid things because it's in the interests of these oligarch gangsters for us to believe it. We have to do better as a species.
That's extremely well said, man. Very well said, Aaron. I want to make a clarification about what I said earlier regarding how people should move and what they should say. I don't want to give the illusion that I'm making apologies for like suburbanites. I'm talking about Palestinians. I'm talking about Palestinians.
Yeah. No, I
I'm not talking
agree with them.
I'm not talking about suburbanites who want to keep your accounting job. So you don't.
In England, you have to be careful. Period. Palestinian or not, if you're in England, you really have to be careful whether you're Palestinian or not. You can't even say like I support Palestine action or whatever. Like England really is becoming just outright fascist.
I just want to say that I don't want people to use that excuse to not take action because there are many Palestinians who made a lot of sacrifice. So I want to clarify that because I don't want to make it seem like I'm making excuses for people. I think people in the West need to make some sacrifices in genocide. But if you're someone who can be easily targeted, like Palestinians, I understand why they move the way they do. I want to give your thoughts on regarding one of the main stories I had. I could talk about Iran a little bit earlier. I want your thoughts on the de-dollarization project because it seems like Scott Bessent delivered a gigantic win to BRICS, and BRICS is kind of all over the place. There are a lot of people who kind of claim they're more revolutionary than they actually are. They're not really that revolutionary. They're just here to provide the global majority an option against U.S. economic terrorism. You know what I mean? They're not trying to take down the U.S. empire. They just want a economic system where they're not tied to the whims of the regime. So as the global majority is moving more towards this, even Zionist rogue states like India held a line when it comes to ignoring the West, when it comes to buying Russian oil and gas. And that's once again over 1 billion people there. You have China who put out a statement like, you guys are out of your mind if you think we are listening to your nonsense about sanctions on Iran. And here is Scott Bessent, and I describe this as the Trump administration announces the death of the U.S. dollar. And I want you to get your thoughts, see whether you agree or disagree with me. Let me play this clip, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And then we're going to quickly cover it. It's not going to be a long segment regarding the Hakeem Jeffries thing. We will cover that quickly, and then we can begin to wrap up. But let's play this clip, and I'll bring you in.
Teams from Treasury, State, and the U.S. military are now meeting with their global counterparts to tell them that the United States expects action. Every country has a defined timeline to shut down activities we have identified. If they do not take action, we will do so unilaterally through Treasury authorities. For example, every branch of Bank Melay must be shuttered and dark. And let me be clear, any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran
Money laundering
will be removed from the US dollar system. The
Huh?
clock just started.
What do you just say? Aaron, please. That's I don't know, am I misreading this? To me, that seems like suicide. What's your thoughts, Aaron?
Well, you've probably seen Blazing Saddles, you know, the Mel Brooks movie before. It was written by Richard Pryor, which I didn't realize for so long because it's got some racially charged humor, I'll say. But it's if you haven't seen it, it's pretty funny. It's pretty juvenile, but also dead on in some ways as a satire. And there's a black sheriff in this town, out in the West, and the townspeople don't like him for a number of reasons. Probably most obviously because he's black. I gotta go. I don't remember the plot exactly, but for whatever reason, he's surrounded by angry townsfolk, and he holds a revolver to his head, and he's like, "I'm holding them hostage, right?" And he's like saying he's gonna shoot him. He's gonna shoot the hostage, but it's really just himself, right? But he's like pretending to be some sort of crazy black person holding the sheriff hostage. But it's ridiculous. But for whatever reason, it's the gag in the movie, right? But it just seems like this is what he's doing. He's saying we're gonna kick you out of the dollar system. But what is going to be the impact of kicking big countries out of the dollar system? You're going to put them into the arms of a Chinese-led. I mean, the Chinese have already said that they seek to restructure the global monetary system. They've said this. The Chinese have said all these things that they plan to do in terms of like 5-year plans, developmental goals, and so on. They've pretty much done them. You know, the Chinese don't make idle boasts about things. They don't say shit just for fun to like. They're not like Trump where they say something and then say the exact opposite an hour later. Like they say something like, "This is our plan. This is our next 5-year plan, and we're going to do it." And then 5 years later, you see, oh yeah, they stuck to it, and they're not silly people like our leaders. So it's just amazingly stupid, in my opinion, unless it's going to play out in some way that I just don't foresee. I think that they are destroying the golden goose for themselves.
Yeah, very well said. I want to pivot here because, as I mentioned earlier, this just seemed like straight up suicide. Because as they do this, they're planning on waging economic war against Canada. It just seemed like they're flailing, and they have no idea what they're doing. But I want to cover this story shortly with you guys because I think this reveals and shows the cards of the ruling class and how they're going to navigate and how they're almost looking forward to the Democrats inevitably taking over the House. Because you guys know how this game works. Apex Shakur, the streets call him. Hakeem Jeffries, Rabbi Smooly's favorite house. He's meeting with Jared Kushner. And I was curious on how MSNBC and CNN was going to cover this. And fam, if you want to hear pure copium and propaganda, I've seen a few segments from them. They're like, guys, yeah, we understand why the Democratic base may be upset with this, but you have to understand that Democrats are about to seize the House, and it's his job as leader to reach out to the Trump administration in order to get things done. And they read a readout from Hakeem Jeffries. They said, well, Hakeem Jeffries said they want to make sure they can accomplish things for the American people, like funding for healthcare, education. And I'm like, if you truly believe that Apex Shakur met with Jared Kushner, who was planning to colonize Gaza over healthcare funding, that's journalistic malpractice, and that's how the report is. But we all know what this is really about. This is them coordinating, especially with Hakeem Jeffries having the House and Jared Kushner being Donald Trump's point guy. How the Democrats and Donald Trump is going to squash pro-Palestinian resistance. How their next plan in order to fund the expansion of the Greater Israel Project. What are your thoughts? That's my theory, Aaron. Have you seen the story? What's your initial reaction to this?
I mean, I try to make some allowances for the defaults and failures of DSA people to, or DSA types and the Democratic Party. I try to make allowances for their inability to confront power head on in certain cases. Electing this guy as speaker is just totally unacceptable. He is not popular. He is a clown. He is a very silly person. He's so phony. It's the fact that people are getting excited about the first black speaker of the House in this way is just such a sad commentary. I mean, it really is like what Malcolm X said, like one day they're going to take one of us and make him president. And some people will be so happy and he'll walk around, thinking that he's like part of the club, smoking a big cigar, fool on one end, fire on the other. And I mean, this to me is that kind of like tokenism writ large. Like the dude is, he's not especially a well-spoken fellow. He's a ridiculous character. The only guy more pathetic than him in the House, who's a Democrat with an urban constituency, is Richie Torres, right? I mean, he's about just as bad. But if they put this guy, if they make him speaker, it is a slap in the face to the 80% of the Democratic voters who oppose Zionism at this point, who don't want the U.S. to support Israel anymore.
Yeah, they don't even realize that they have to support the genocidal Zionist war criminal so they can have some potholes fixed in New York.
I mean, both parties have supported the genocidal Zionist project for quite a long time. We still don't have health care, so how in the world can anybody make that argument?
Exactly, Aaron. I'm so glad you said that, because you guys know the crystal ball. These Zoran orbiters are insufferable, fam. She was explaining how I was actually critical at Zoran before for supporting Hakeem Jeffries, but it actually makes sense now that I think about it, because him supporting Hakeem Jeffries make it so he's more likely to implement his domestic agenda because he don't have Hakeem Jeffries on his throne. So essentially, you guys are saying that you're okay with supporting genocide and fascism because the trains are running on time. They're literally making the old school fascist argument, because what is Zoran doing? He's expanding the NYPD. They're building new police precincts. And they cut the library budget. There's no free busing. In fact, they installed fare evasion detectors, more advanced detectors for people who evade fare evasion. So no free buses. You guys are accomplishing nothing. So you guys are making a horrible devil's bargain, because I explained to you guys before, I rejected devil's bargain, the idea that I will sell out the global south, support genocide, support a genocidal party, just so you can get some welfare programs. You guys are not even getting that. Not even getting that. And what part of your platform, something that is on the DSA platform, like Medicare for all, student loan debt forgiveness, national minimum wage increase, which one of these conceptions have you guys received from Hakeem Jeffries?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
No,
Wait.
the incrementalism.
Never tell me. Go ahead, Aaron.
The people who are like, well, you just don't understand incrementalism, but there's no evidence that things have incrementally improved with Democrats in Congress or anywhere else. They don't. If to the extent that there's any incremental movement in our political system, it's in a negative direction. Oh, and I wouldn't even say it's incremental. They're more like jumps of things getting worse and worse every year, pretty obviously. So there's really not much argument for this kind of politics anymore. It's, to quote the Bible again, which isn't really my thing, reflexively, by their fruits ye shall know them. I mean, we have the results, the monument to capitalism and to like the corporate liberal Democrats. It's all around us, and it sucks.
This wasn't my first rodeo, fam. What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you guys? I told you guys months ago. Yeah, I'm like, of course they're gonna let Zoran win. He's the best thing that could happen to the establishment. I told you guys Zoran Mamdani's goal is to use his clout to rehabilitate Zionist Democrats. Did I not say that months before he was elected? I said he's going to be used as a shield to protect deeply unpopular Democrats from the rage of the populace. He's also there to keep the pro-Palestine movement in line by condemning the resistance, condemning protests at synagogues. So he serves multiple very important functions and purposes for the ruling class. He's here to destroy any attempt from the left to rein in the police state. He's here to maintain the police state, to advance the surveillance state, and to rehabilitate Zionism and enable their power. While he made great catchy ads, though, he made videos about him filling potholes, which is bread and circuses. He's great at providing bread and circuses, but he's enabling the Zionist project using his power. Because I'm going to pose a question to you guys. This is what I kind of mentioned earlier in the stream. Isn't it more morally reprehensible for someone to acknowledge that there's genocide in Gaza that the Democratic Party is responsible for? Hakeem Jeffries, Joe Biden is responsible for. Kamala Harris is responsible for. Isn't it deplorable, at least to me? I don't know how your guys' values and morals work, but to me, it's worse for you to acknowledge there's genocide going on and then using your institutional power to support the people facilitating that. Am I the only one who finds a problem in that? But Aaron, I think you want to chime in earlier. What's your thoughts, man?
I would say some of his, as the mayor of New York City and an anti-Zionist, supposedly, or at least a critic of Zionism, I can't even imagine how you would go about trying to, be the top administrator in that political entity that is New York City. So I can be sympathetic to him in some ways. I mean, the one woman who runs the LAPD, it's like they really are an army that is bigger than some nations' actual armed forces, and they're ultimately pretty fascistic. They likely have working relationships with all the intelligence agencies and with organized crime, no doubt. I mean, the deep politics of New York, do you really think that, like, they're really cracking down on all the people bringing in all the drugs in New York? Like, no, it's a business just like any other sector of the economy. And the NYPD has to be wrapped up in that in different ways institutionally. It is a very tricky thing to do. I do think that supporting, he didn't have to say don't primary Jeffries. I think he could have at least said, I'm not going to comment on this. He didn't have to do what he did there. I can't.
Not
what
only
it would
that,
look like if he had some better.
He also got involved with DSA. He personally invited himself. He personally got involved in order to protect Hakeem Jeffries from primary challenge. I just want to add that. Please continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's where I think, like, okay, I can rationalize some things, and I don't know what you do with the, like, head of a essentially fascist kind of organization. I mean, the fact that the woman running it is this Zionist billionaire, princessling, whatever. Why the hell is she running this? Why is she running the NY? What, she could have done anything she wanted to do, and she wanted to be a super cop. Like, what in the world? How is that passed off as like any sort of innocent, normal thing? I mean, what is normal in this under this regime? But so I have a little bit of hope that these are things that he's trying to do that he feels he has no choice but to do. And he seems to be less nakedly opportunistic than AOC to me, but I'm only basing that kind of on vibes. I can't, I don't really have any case to make for it. I think that what is more likely to change anything politically, and this sucks to admit, because I would like to say, oh, we're rallying the people and we're doing something. I think that these structural realities of the U.S. economy and the U.S. empire, the state of the dollar, and then which is intertwined with the ability of the U.S. to project military force anywhere in the world, these things are crumbling, and the changes of that are going to change the political realities. And so presently, you have to accommodate all of these different things that are really evil in this system to even be a part of it at all. But as the system changes, it may open up opportunities for some people who are not totally disingenuous and phony to do a little bit more, I would hope. And so I'm hoping that there are some people who are kind of captured in some ways by circumstances, that as the situation deteriorates, there will be some people in some positions of power to manage some actual positive reforms. Because unfortunately, we do not seem to be anywhere near a kind of positive socialist revolution in the United States. Like even the left, for everybody saying like, oh, democratic entryism is stupid, don't even try to mess with the Democratic Party. And I don't like the party. I think it's a criminal organization. But you got to also be aware of the fact that the left is the tiny percent of the population that would be like radical left. They're divided and often many times terrible. I mean, the people that like are Trotskyites are imbeciles when they talk about foreign policy, and they say like, don't forget how bad this other government that we're attacking is also. They're not saints. And it's like, it's irrelevant. Are you a child? Like, we can't even control our own system, and you're going to just, gas up the critiques of the imperialists, about country X, Y, or Z, or, they're obsessed with identity politics and positions on some of these things that are statistically really unpopular. Like in Pennsylvania, the main ad I saw for Trump in the last election was the Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you. And it's like, okay, it's childish, it's mean-spirited, but it's also the core issue there, and that was that Kamala Harris supported, essentially taxpayer-funded sex change operations for inmates while you don't have health care for people. So like, you can't get cancer treatment paid for by the state, but you can get, sex change, gender confirmation, whatever that's called nowadays. There's a reason to see why people would be like, man, there's something wrong with that. Why would you have the money for that, but not like my whatever cancer treatment? So it's like the left needs to be appealing. It needs to be organized and unified and appealing to presenting a platform and a program that can appeal to the majority of people, and not just say, well, we're right about this. We're the vanguard. We know better than you idiots. You should listen to us. And if you're not, well, then we don't care. You're stupid. I don't want to be white adjacent and fuck Thanksgiving. Like, people like Thanksgiving. Like, and I rooted for this woman basically, even though her politics aren't mine. But I rooted for that Hong woman. But why the hell is she saying so? Like, well, I have been white adjacent in the past. Like, 65% of the country is white, and you're like talking about the sort of your disdain for being like white adjacent. Like, who the hell talks like that?
Class people do. They say
bullshit like that
on social issues to make up for the fact that they're weak on imperialism
and capitalism. Yeah.
But I 100%. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I 100% agree with you, because as someone who's been trying to organize the left for the last few years, with RBN and many other things, I said many times before, organizing the left in the United States is a nightmare. But it's our job to lead the working class to the proper solution. I have faith in the working class. I have much more to add to that, but I want to play this clip because I previewed this. I want to play this clip, and I still have a few more things I want to chime in on, and I'm sure you will too. This is
I got a few minutes. I should duck out here pretty soon.
You said what?
I got a few more minutes, but I should duck out here pretty soon.
We're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap up here very soon. Let's play this clip and we get our final thoughts on this.
Okay.
I first wanted to just get your reaction to Times reporting on Hakeem Jeffries meeting with Jared Kushner. I mean, what do you think of Jeffries potentially being speaker in light of this? And then my second question is, it's now 2 weeks until the first day of school, and there's still no AI policy, and principals aren't supposed to buy new tech until there is one. So can you just give any update to that? Will it be coming in the next few days? I know this is a stressful issue for schools.
It is, and it is an issue of immense importance to us in the administration, and it is an issue that we will be speaking to soon. And to your first question, I continue to support Congressman Jeffries and his bid to become the leader.
All right, thanks.
So one of the responses I hear a lot from Zoram supporters something that you also mentioned as well, which is a legitimate defense of Zoran in some way, where they say, "Well, Nick, you can't really expect them to challenge Hakeem Jeffries and the New York City mob. Don't you know they would destroy him?" They always say that, like, Nick, come on, you can't really expect him to actually wage a revolution overnight. He got to work with these Zionists and genocidal monsters. And my response to that is always like, I wish you guys would have said that during the election, because you want to know who was saying that? You know who mentioned that many times? Me. Remember during the election when I was like, "Hey, yo, don't get your hopes up because even if Zoran win, it's not going to be a big revolutionary moment in New York City." Now that Zoran won, in order to excuse him being a blatant sellout, people now sound like I did before the election. They will say, "Well, you can't really expect him to arrest Netanyahu." Before the election, I was like, "You guys are idiots if you believe he's going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu." And the response I got, dead ass, from more Mamdani and DSA supporters, like, "Oh, look at Nick trying to be a wrecker, negative Nancy." We got to support an anti-Zionist mayor who say he would arrest Netanyahu. I was like, guys, doesn't matter. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. Now, after the election, after he won, people were like, "Come on, Nick. You can't really expect that he's going to arrest Netanyahu. You really can't expect that he's ever going to challenge power." That's exactly what I was saying in the first place. And that's my theory of change. My theory of change, which I'm trying to organize the almost unorganizable left, is that we shouldn't be wasting our revolutionary energy and giving people false hope, lying to the working class, coaching politicians on how to lie to the working class. We need to be upfront with people that this mayor race is not going to lead to any institutional change, which was my position in the first place. So we need to get serious and brainstorm and build our own movement. Actually gain power for the working class. But Aaron, let me give you your last thoughts. Thank you I appreciate you being generous for your time and joining us tonight. I'll give you final thoughts. I'll let you go, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate all that you're saying there, and if I can't contradict what the right approach is to this, because as I say, I don't know what's the best option when really you don't have any efficacious options available. In general, I think if you want to be more optimistic without being delusional, it is a sign that there are changes in politics and culture in a positive way that somebody like Mamdani could ever get elected, because it is unusual. Now, the downside of that is he has to come and really just make a little bitch of himself in so many humiliating ways. It's painful to watch when they ask him about it. He's like, "Yes, I support Jeffries." I mean, that he has to know that Jeffries is not a good actor, and yet he's got to do that. I think that things will change because of bigger structural issues, and this will open up space at some point for reforms. It is very, very strange that you could see something like, I mean, the Tucker Carlson conversation with Roger Waters, for example, when he's talking about 9/11 and so on, that was pretty interesting, which isn't for me to say like, "Ooh, Tucker's great." He's not suspicious at all with his CIA dad and the Fox News and everything else. But the fact that is something that a conservative figure would put on the air and it would be well received by people that follow him is very interesting. And even if you're not just a total gangster beneficiary of this system, if you're actually a conservative American who basically has conservative views, you have to recognize that there need to be some big reforms. And I think that there may be the opportunity for more overlap between, some more conservative segments of the population and then on the more left-wing side of things, which isn't for me. I'm not saying, "Oh yeah, join Tucker Carlson's party," but what he is trying to do, some of the things, which is trying to formulate something that should appeal to most people, like following international law, following the Constitution, ending forever wars, and ending the dominance of money in politics. These are things that could attract a majoritarian coalition. And if there's no revolution coming, which it doesn't seem to be that way in the U.S. at all, then you've got to have some way to organize people politically. And I think that this adhering to international law and reining in the power of destroying the power of oligarchs to dominate our political system, that this is about the best we can hope for, and maybe there will be a crisis that will be opportunistic, and somehow there can be the prevailable will of and interest of the people can win out in some sort of reforms. That if we can just keep from destroying the planet and so on, I think ultimately the success of the Chinese system and the superiority of their socialist regime is going to be so clear as they do more and more amazing things to advance their own society. I don't see them reversing what they're doing. I don't see it as like a big cover for like a group of Chinese oligarchs to become the new USA. I think that this era of Western dominance is coming to an end, which is really white supremacy, which is really capitalism. And we're so used to thinking of it as the norm that we don't really see it as like a particular phase of history that's about to be surpassed. And so I have a little more optimism, and I hope that some of these people that seem like such schmucks now, even in the Democratic Party, that they might, maybe when the circumstances change, they could be part of some bigger reformist movement. But for the time being, I say explain the brutal truth to people as best we can. I think this is what we do. If we can't do much, like really do much, at least we can tell the truth until the circumstances change.
Aaron Good, ladies and gentlemen. You guys will follow him at Aaron Good. I put his X account on here, host of American Exceptionalist Podcast. Always great talking with you. I appreciate you being very generous with your time. Let's bring Zoya's love. Zoya's life. Let's get Zoya in here. Because I have a few things I want to say, because Aaron is 100% on point. And people who say that the election of Zohran Mamdani and Dr. Abdul El Sayed winning is a good sign of people adopting our ideas, they're not wrong. They're 100% right. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity because it shows that people are adopting our ideas. That's the theory. Like, isn't it good that that someone like Zohran Mamdani is opening people's mind to socialism? Isn't it good that to have someone who is high profile, who is critical of Israel? And I'm like, yes, that's good, but it's also a reflection that people are ready for revolutionary change. Do you guys understand? How do people use that as an argument towards incrementalism? Where they say, hey guys, isn't it great that Zohran is winning and we are winning the hearts of American people because we dominated the Zionists in the battle of ideas? So let's take all this energy that is now collected with the American people, with us dominating them and people join the anti-Zionist movement, and let's use it to rehabilitate the Democratic Party. Who's in? How does that make sense? How does that make sense? Zohran Mamdani said on the campaign trail multiple times, he said it again after it. He said the point of my campaign and what I am trying to accomplish is to save the Democratic Party. So when you guys say that Zohran winning is a good sign for where people is at, how does that mean sheepdogging back to the Democratic Party? Because if more people, and hear me out here, because I know political strategy is hard for the dipshit left, but if the American people are turning against Israel, and an unpopular politician like Hakeem Jeffries is pro-Israel, Zoya, explain to me like I'm 5. How does it make sense to sheepdog people into supporting an unpopular politician, supporting an unpopular policy position? Wouldn't it make more sense to let the Democratic Party hang itself, to abandon it to only the Zionist wings of the party as we form an anti-Zionist movement? Let Hakeem Jeffries be a Democrat. Let Amy Klobuchar be a Democrat. Let John Ossoff and Gavin Newsom run as Democrats. And we bring the 70% of the Democratic Party who are now anti-Israel. That, you guys, the polls are crazy. So when people tell you that Zohran Mamdani is a great sign of things to come, they are right. I never made the argument to the contrary. The argument I'm making is, how do we take this opportunity and squander it? By endorsing Kamala Harris? By pledging to vote blue no matter who? That is what the United States is using, this anti-genocide energy, this anti-Zionist energy, this anti-Israel energy. If you elect someone like Zohran, and let's say you love Zohran, Isn't it a great opportunity to peel away from the Democrats now that you show that you can win at your own coalition? Nothing that they do strategy-wise makes sense unless you're a sheepdog. You guys think I haven't thought about this 24/7, 5 ways to Sunday? I know every argument that people are going to throw at me at this. I thought about already. Their argument is incoherent. Does that make sense, Zoya, my friends? I was just arguing the point that I hear a lot from people. And I'm like, that the argument that people are more to the left and liberals are more to the left, that's the argument they made. Oh, let's organize with them and the Democrat. No, this is why we should be pulling them out, right? Anyway, Zoya, let's get you in here. How you guys doing, my friend?
Nick, you don't get it. It's 10D chess. By voting against our interests, eventually they'll realize that this is wrong and they're just going to give us stuff. Oh, man.
Make it make sense.
We're still doing this in 2026? My God.
People still don't know that DSA is a 40-year-old organization. People think that shit started yesterday. 40 years haven't accomplished. No, we've seen this playbook over and over and over again. At this point, it's like clear to me that they're trying to kill the revolutionary energy of the working class so they can social climb within liberal circles, which is inherently counter-revolutionary and toxic to any social movement to adopt and have these people lead it. If they want to volunteer money, time, and help in your projects, that's great. But to have them lead your movement when they're neoliberal capitalists and Dubai landlords, insanity. Anyway, I'm done. I'm going crazy tonight. Zoya, you mind taking over for a bit?
I'm here for it, but some of these comments are going to bring you right back in.
I already know you're going to try and trigger me for another hour show.
We love to see it. DJ Leader finally caught a live stream. Live! Marvelous Monday, RBM fam. Hopefully this Monday's going well for you guys. I love starting the week with you guys, and then we finish it up on Fridays. Ashura, Canada's not going to do shit. I live here. They are America's bitches. Amanda, we're always so happy to see you, and the show topics are always so heavy, but we need them addressed, so we keep showing up.
Big shout out to Amanda.
Michael Moya, hi Nick, what kind of spices do you use when you are cooking? Facts and Fury, special edition.
Yeah, I like that.
Artur Itas. Mummy Danny is an establishment puppet of the New York DNC. Clear as day to those paying attention. Michael, so tired of that shit. Ugh. Yeah, we're here for the tired of that shit. Now, what are we going to do about it? Martian from Earth. Settlers in Australia would bury Indigenous children at the beach to their neck and compete about the first person who could kick the first head off. Settler violence is part of Western culture. Absolutely. And just horrific. Just horrific. When you really study imperialism and how it's operated for centuries, I mean, I dare you not to just shed tears. Fei Lu. Settler violence really is a part of Western culture. Rem, Carney said that Trump needed to teach the Iranians how to be civilized. Yeah, unbelievable. A civilization thousands of years old. Kai Jones, Canada will be forever known for giving standing ovation to actual Nazi. Yep. Martian from Earth. Similar stories from Caribbean, Americas, Africa, and Asia. Some of the worst I personally have heard firsthand were from Myanmar. There's no shortage of Western crimes. Selena, it's my understanding that 60% of voters are registered independent. Yeah, they always like to avoid that fact. Matt, the bloke. Respect for covering Canada, the number one sidekick of the US in Ontario. It's not bad yet, but they're passing laws trying to implement the IHRA definition, especially in universities. They're coming for all of us, guys. Andre, 420 Reformed. Thanks for you covering my cucked country of India. Fine weather. Canada, do that friendly fascism shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, Canadians are victims of capitalist dictatorship. We got a lot of Canadian comrades. I'm not attacking, just like with a lot of my critiques of the Muslim Zionists in the Middle East. It's not an attack on the working class, it's an attack on the ruling class. They can't really change either. I remember in my rant earlier, I said if you guys even had a revolution, the United States, you guys would see how sovereign they really are. If there was the real socialist revolution in Canada. Which is why I take this revolutionary shit in America seriously, because you guys realize how many populations we could free. There can't be any real socialist revolution almost anywhere else until the United States empire capitalist class is defeated, and until they lose their ability to destabilize countries that choose to prioritize the working class. As members of the imperial core, it's our duty towards humanity to be revolutionary. You guys, it's almost incalculable how many people will benefit from a revolutionary United States. Imagine a global hegemon that instead of cracking down on socialist movements is completely supportive of countries and their sovereignty. You will see the working class rise all over the world. This is what I truly believe. You will see, if hypothetically, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but hypothetically, if there's a revolution in the United States and we take charge, you will see a global collapse of fascism, worldwide. I need to write a book about this, like what could happen, because the possibilities are endless globally for what that would mean for the working class. I said I was going to stop, but I'm pretty chatty on Mondays.
And that's how we like you. Kai Jones, Iran put a $10 million bounty on Baron Trump. I saw that. Fei Lu, love to see the Western nations infighting. It's fake infighting. Their interests align. The Heating Furno. Nick, the best lefty. Fine weather. We poors are on a downward spiral. That's the plan for us. USSR is gone. Whatever privileges we had, they're systemically taking them away.
But you got, and this is what pisses me off. I think this is kind of like a smaller criticism, but I know people in my life are struggling. Like shit is real for a lot of us. But that's why I love we did a stream with Showtime in Rome, because you can see how shit is real, bro. The stuff that we're going through. Meanwhile, the DSA, Zoran Mamdani, they full of toxic positivity. I said I hate that smiley ass shit. Like Abdul El Sayed. I think the only thing I showed on the channel about a tweet about it. Him doing that Blue Clue commercial, him dancing and singing because he want to be a Hollywood celebrity. As there's a genocide going on, they singing and happy. Oh, guys, look, we're winning. I hate to me. Is that petty? I feel like they use that to dull the anger we need to spark revolution. The fake, like the whole Bernie Sanders, Zoran, I don't know. It's complete professional managerial class nonsense. And meanwhile, people who are under the boot of the police state, fascism, people who are victim of genocide, I'm not feeling that bullshit. I don't understand how that shit appeals to people. Like when I seen that Abdul, I might have to find it for you guys, but man, that shit is infuriating. You guys are not meeting the moment.
Yeah, they're peddling delusion. Nonsense, solidarity, comrades. Solidarity to you as well. Andre, Canada has white nationalist fight clubs that travel to the US for meetups. Guys, these people are so much more organized than us. Why aren't we traveling for communist meetups? That's the number one thing I think about when I see this. Oh God, the cringe.
I keep referencing it so you guys know. Look at the lack of respect for the working class. Look at how he emphasizes the working class. Am I the only one who finds this shit nauseating?
Makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail.
Sir, they are purging Palestine. You guys see how this shit doesn't match the moment? And this is so, I don't know. Listen, look at this.
Thanks, mailbox. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from. Oh, it looks like my ballot. Brought to me by my Secretary of State. And with it, I can participate in democracy.
This is I can end it here, but this is how much he respects the working class. Talking to you like you're a child. I admit it's probably not my strongest criticism. That's why I don't lead with it. But the fake smiley, toxic positivity, to me, I think this is toxic to revolutionary movements. It's not my leading argument, but it annoys the shit out of me that this is what they're doing as Palestine is still being destroyed by Israel.
First day that I can turn this in is June 25th, but it has to be postmarked by July 21st. Or I can drop it off up until Election Day, which is August 4th. Makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail.
Anyone with any self-respect is closing the video at this point. Am I the only one who's pissed off on that kind of stuff? This is the kind of shit you do when you want to hide the fact that you're funding Nazis in Ukraine. I don't know. Maybe I'll probably be more sympathetic if wasn't supporting war. If you wasn't supporting a genocidal party. I don't know. Go ahead.
They're all entertainers at this point. Kai Jones, Canadians are still subjects of the English crown. Well, the king is their king, but they actually have their own Canadian crown and are considered a sovereign nation. But they are definitely cucks of the British Empire. Tricon, democracy failed during the Greeks. Isn't it clever how they brought it back and repackaged it, though, as like a concession to the working class?
Basically.
Andre, Dimitri said it's just kabuki theater on Jamal's show earlier. Yep. Norman Finkelstein's Stan account. As a Quebecois, I literally LOL'd when you try to pronounce it. Ha ha.
Oh yeah, bro. Anything French, bro, no chance. That's my worst one. That's my worst language. I fuck French names up all the time.
Merci.
You guys should. I used to watch a lot of international soccer, bro. Like when I used to watch those games, playing with my friends, they used to crack on me all the time because I used to mess all their names up.
We do our best. Green to Steakhouse. I give up. Shout out from Australia. Thanks for calling out the Psycho West, especially is not real. We love our international community. CBC voter, Nick Cruse. I live in Kelowna, BC, Canada. See, now it's my turn to butcher names. Matt the Bloke. Part of the so-called defense industrial strategy is that Canada plans to increase weapons exports by 50%. Of course.
That's why highly educated people are confusing to me. Like, bro, you know how to speak every language. You don't butcher any names. Damn, that's crazy to me. I'm just an uneducated Midwestern boy though.
It's okay. Those kind of academics support the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, everyone.
They just support it in French. Oui, oui.
They sign letters condemning Iran and shit.
Oh man, brutal. We didn't even get into that.
Dude, we didn't get into a lot of stuff. I want to talk about Ukraine, but man, we just We back to 3 days a week, so we got plenty of time. But man, there's so much stuff going on. That's why I don't know. I don't understand how people can follow. There's so many people covering brain dead elections. I'm like, bro, you know how much stuff is going on in the world? How do you guys have time for this bullshit? But anyway, go ahead, Zoya. I barely can fit all the shit I want to talk to in the show.
Faye, Aaron Good, a great guest. Yeah, he is a great guy in general.
Yeah, make sure you guys check out the first shows. He's an expert on history, especially the history of the CIA and JFK. And that, you notice he mentioned it a few times. The only reason we haven't talked about it since he's been on first time because we did a deep dive into it. I think he wrote a book about it, I believe. He has a podcast he talks about. He's extremely smart when it comes to history, CIA, that kind of stuff. Our first show ever was a super banger where we dive into the JFK, CIA, that kind of stuff. I think that was like maybe 3 years ago now. But yeah, Aaron is good. He's super slept on. Powerhouse.
For sure. John Kemper, is any of this crap with these country leaders real? If you're talking about Western leaders, then no.
I just be watching them putting out fake ass storylines and people just be eating it up. Like people still believe that Trump and Netanyahu are beefing. Fucking slop.
Yep. De jour, Aaron Good, hearts. Yeah. He's definitely a friend of the show. RKM, yo, long time, Nick. Well, welcome back. Good to have you. Nitram case. A single organized crime network controls most governments. Yeah, it's capitalism nowadays. Mr. Blamo, Putin declared Russia the global leader in nuclear power plant construction and the only nation with expertise across the entire nuclear energy chain. What's happening in the West? Oh, our bridges are collapsing. Most Americans, 2/3 of Americans, can't afford groceries. No big deal. We're number one in our own ways. Prison population and stuff.
Yeah.
Iridescent dragonfly. Problem is, will the West go deeper into fascism or socialism? I mean, unless we stop them, it's definitely fascism.
All I'm saying is they got one hell of a lead, bro. the ruling class has been locked in. They've been locked in my entire life, fam. They quashed revolutionary movement, social movement after social movement, counterinsurgencies after counterinsurgency. I will never bow to nihilism. I'm just saying that they ran the score up, and we got a lot of work to do. That's all I'm going to say.
Well said. Andre, you put me onto these DSA sellouts, Nick. Thanks for that. That's what we're here for. We always
realize, me and Zoya, we've been around these people. Like Zoya, we've been around these people more than you guys give us credit for. I know these people. I know how they think. I know their contradictions. There's a reason why they avoid me. I know that. But sorry, Zoya, please continue. My bad.
Yeah, Jamal Bowman used to wish me a happy birthday on the timeline. Like we know them.
Yeah. Roman and Nina Turner used to be friends. It's crazy to think back in 2019, 2020. I knew Zoya for a long time, my friends. Like I knew Rome for a long time. Like, bro, think back to those days when like Sam Cedar and Majority Report and them used to follow me. Like, bro, we used to know these people. We've seen them sell out in real time. Go ahead, Zoya.
Yeah, they contradicted themselves. This isn't us being cynical. This is us watching them betray their own rhetoric. Leroy, the Sam Cedar NATO left. Yup. Don Hooligan, New York is torturing Nicolas Maduro, and New Yorkers are clamoring for treats. Sad as hell. Jamie G, greetings all. Welcome to the show. Andre, remember the settlers who massacred natives and KKK who did the same to black people were both so-called Christians. Oh yeah, the crimes committed in the name of Christianity. We could just do a week of shows on that. Mark Bulmer, Watch this. Corruption is legal in America, and you'll see that all of Congress is actually for sale. So you could have radically different public opinion from what's actually happening. There was a Princeton study done on this years ago that showed that the population has zero influence on policy and that money controls politics. Like, it's already been proven. Jason Dick, love the handle. In my small Canadian town, I know Nick loves these moments where I have to read this stuff. It's a small evangelical church that pushes all the Western propaganda. Oh, yeah. I mean, anyone that's evangelical, go look up where your version of the Bible comes from. That's all I'm going to say.
Don't get me started on the black church. Brainwash black Americans to support Zionism all over the country. People think I go hard on Judaism. You haven't heard shit. You haven't heard shit, babe. Have you heard my rant against the black church years ago? They are an organization used to convince elderly black people. Well, the black community as a whole. I won't separate it. They're here to convince the religious black community as a whole to support corrupt politicians. To go back to that whole why I'm not religious thing. This was one of the things I kind of peeped out pretty early. It was used to, I was like, man, these institutions seem like they're used to control people. Then I see these black church popping up. Jim Clyburn, Hakeem, the black church, they had a ceremony with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was slaughtering kids in Gaza. And they were like, we're going to pray with Joe Biden. Joe Biden been here with us, using their God to rehabilitate genocide. You guys realize how crazy that is to me? Anyway, let's go ahead, Zoya.
Yeah, and for the Soviet Union, I hear criticism often that, oh my God, they killed all of these monks and priests. Who do you think was controlling the land and keeping all of those serfs?
Zoya.
Justice. UAE is the world capital for money laundering. Oh, absolutely. That's why they're stealing all that gold from Sudan. Disgusting fake country. DJ Leader. Yes, Dimitri is Canadian. You should have him on as a guest. He's very intelligent, grounded, and ran for the Green Party in Canada. Guys, we had him on. You can look up an interview he had with Nick, and I'm happy to send him an invite to come back.
Yeah, we got to have him back on. He's been cooking.
Man with long last name. Black faces in high places can't save us. I honestly hope the U.S. never gets a woman or another black person as president because this tokenism is cringe at best. Yeah, I mean, us women haven't recovered from Margaret Thatcher yet. And then Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. I mean, come on.
Oh, no, we already cooked. The first black president was the drone strike king. The first black AG was Eric Holder, who bailed out the banks. Bro, we are all our the first black vice president, Kamala Harris, cooked. She committed a genocide. All our first, like that shit is completely meaningless. It's honestly slop they use, and it worked. It worked on a lot of black Zoomers and Gen Xer when they fell for that representation crap. It's why I'm a proud class reductionist, because the Zionist sellouts in the Black Congressional Caucus and the black capitalist class, they all touched the wall. Floyd Mayweather, he touched the wall. LeBron, every single black capitalist, Beyonce was being pimped out to Jewish billionaires. Like, they all owned by the Zionist regime. So I'm like, bro, I'm not messing. These black capitalists are our enemies, bro. Like, you can't just assume people have your best interests because they have the same skin color as you, which is race reductionism in a nutshell. It's an argument that will make Nick Fuentes blush. The idea that we're supposed to trust black people or anyone who has your same skin color, no matter what their class conditions are, no matter what their social background is. Oh, we got to trust them because they look like us. Bro, that's race science on steroids, bro. The KKK will blush at the argument that, like, FBA people will make. They're big race reductionists. They are like, no, But they hate the people who talk about class. I'm like, I want your hatred. I'll call you a class I'll call myself a class reductionist just to let them know I don't fuck with them because it's idiocy. Anyway, go ahead, Zoe. I'm trying.
No, you're right. You're cooking.
Yeah.
Kai Jones, AOC posting thirst traps now. What stage of end stage capitalism is that?
Bro, she about a thirst trap her way to the presidency. This shit is about to be crazy.
Nick
Bro, her thirst traps are going super viral on X. I'm like, bro, what is this? Bro, she actually about a third trap her way. But I told you guys there's a big simp problem in the left. Like, it shit cost us big time. I told people don't sleep on AOC, man. She got strong support from the party now. People who sleep on AOC, I'm not saying she's gonna win, but she's gonna get a great coalition that she will use to endorse like John Ossoff. She's gonna be promoted to like party leader. She being guided by very shrewd tacticians who want to deliver her upper power. So they telling her to make these third traps. She used to never do this stuff, like showing her belly, showing much skin as possible, having really skin tight shirts on. I'm like, bro, they actually about third trap. When she had no legitimacy in the left, so let's just third trap her way to the presidency. And lost slack-jaw DSA idiots are falling for it.
And she's going to shit on every policy that she claimed to support on her way.
Exactly.
Kill your ergos. Incremental is just buying time we don't have. Spread the word. Calamity. I'm sure Zoran is doing good in New York City, but I'm not going to expect him to lead a movement. He is not doing good in New York City. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely.
You guys aren't getting those potholes fixed. Maybe like near the stock exchange, but not where we live.
So I posted this on X. I maybe cover on the channel. I don't remember, guys. Sorry. All these segments are starting to blend together. I think I covered this, but Zoran Mamdani had a campaign promise. There are a lot of promises that he made that a lot of people are forgetting about. One of the promises that he mentioned multiple times, there are clips of him talking about this. He wanted to de-integrate the NYPD in the Israeli military. He used to be very extremely critical about this. It was one of the things that a lot of otherwise super anti-democrat. There were a lot of people. I had a lot of friends who like Zoran, and they used to explain to me that, hey man, Zoran said he wants to end the integration between the Israeli military and the NYPD. I know I'm not usually for Democrats, but you got to admit that's a good thing. And what I tell you guys, I said, just like many of them say now, that's not going to happen. And that's not happening. In fact, he's helping Jessica Tisch further integrate the NYPD with Israel and helping further their surveillance technology, the same surveillance technology that Zoran Mamdani used to be critical of. So, man, the Zoran Media Industrial Complex has done an amazing job, Zoya, of hiding this stuff from people. Because there's so many people I see that say stuff like this, that Zoran is doing good. It's wild, isn't it? We got work. You got wondering why I do what I do, why I cover this a lot, because we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Every fucking time. And these candidates are actually getting worse. Coming out on TV. Look, I'm definitely a capitalist. Oh, I don't support defunding the police. That's woke one.
Yeah.
Leroy, it's crazy how people are falling for this again. This is literally Obama all over again. At least you guys get it. You know, help keep us sane and we'll help keep you sane. Don Hooligan, BRICS must end the IMF USD economy of war to save the fucking planet from US. Sarah Johnson, I missed most of it, but love Aaron Good. Most people watch on the replay, so don't worry. Wusa Gaddafi, jumping in the swamp to drain it just gets you infected. Something wrong with a person that thinks they can change the US government. Yeah, you can't change it from the inside. It's a system. If you go against the party destroys you. So you're not going to go into the Nazi party and reform them.
Don't you know? All you gotta do is win the debate, Zoya. You can debate a Nazi to support liberalism.
Uh, Nonsensy. Who decides what is realistic? System change is necessary and will be done because it is what needs to be done. Highly recommend reading What Is to Be Done by Lenin, who addresses a lot of the same issues we're going through today. And everything changes. Of course, everything will change, but it's changing towards fascism, and it will keep doing that unless we do something to stop it. Heidi Loki, thank you for the €2, I think. Chose Democrats, chose to lose. Rick Solis, thank you for the $5. The U.S. foreign policy in a nutshell, lifting Iraq only to drop it on one's own foot. Mao. LNU, thank you for the $11. My baby leftist friend says Iran is bad because of alleged systemic prison torture and rape. I told her I don't trust Western MSM and was antagonized for not believing victims. Yeah, that's a famous liberal psyop. They love to smear anti-imperialist countries.
And you see, this is the Western feminist brain rot that is extremely dangerous, and why I've been extremely critical of it in the last few years. Um, you see how liberals are extremely accepting of any smears of the quote unquote brown and black savage as rapists. Oh, look, don't you? I was told people in Iran rape, and they just believe it because brown people being told by a white person telling you some brown person is engaged in rape. They use this historically to smear all indigenous movements. They use this to smear my black ancestors. White feminists would join the smears of black men being savages who wanted to rape white women. They say that about Native Americans. Zionists to this day, you say that about Palestinians as they're protesting the right to rape. They smear power. It's a colonial strategy, and then people in the Western left, these white leftists, they will still fall for it. Like, Nick, don't you know you gotta condemn Iran? I don't have evidence, but you gotta believe that they're doing some rape, right? They just assume they are because they believe in the savage imperial propaganda. It's something that's kind of sick, right?
Meanwhile, it's legal to rape inmates by cops in majority of U.S. states. So everything's always pure projection from them. And of course, you can find flaws in any country. No country is a utopia. But first of all, it's none of your fucking business, Americans. Second of all, it's always exaggerated and twisted into something it's not, like the Uyghur genocide. Meanwhile, the population's growing economically and in numbers. And when you talk to Uyghurs, they're like, what are you guys talking about? Don't you guys eat babies? You Epstein class country?
Yeah.
Last comment for the day from AO. Sam Cedar used to follow Nick.
They all used to, Sam. But a lot of the new followers, a lot of the new followers don't know. A lot of my old school people don't. I had a lot of clout among the Bernie campaign. Nina Turner used to follow me. All these people used to follow me. Now they pretend they don't know me. Once again, it was I would say three things that led to our massive divorce. One, I was like, you guys are out of your mind voting for Joe Biden. I was critical of AOC and the squad. Two, I was critical of their support of NATO, which was a real red line. And third, believe it or not, and this was actually a big part of it, not only us being independent, but when I went on the Jimmy Dore show, that was a big part of it, because the gatekeeping class are very particular about everyone falling in line when they try to socially ostracize someone. And when they saw that I wasn't willing to go along with like their coordinated blacklisting, I was willing to platform people like Rome, people that the DSA Bernie Crat establishment couldn't control. The fact that they were like, Nick, you can't go on Jimmy Dore. I'm like, bro, I will talk to anybody. I want my position. I will not change, and no one could ever change my mind on this. I'm willing to do good with anyone. I will do bad with nobody, but I want to do good with anyone. And that's why I rejected. And that was one of the big things. Then I went on Jimmy's show, and I was like, yeah, I think the left lost their mind pushing mandate bullshit. I ripped Nina Turner, and it was over, bro. Like the amount of Bernie people who unfollowed me during that time, but it was great because it was counterbalanced by the working class support I got. It was Zoe was there, bro. It was a very interesting time. We had 10 demands. Remember, Zoe, we had progressive candidate that was endorsing 10 demands, bro. Like that was a crazy time. I remember all that vividly, Zoe. I don't know how much you do, but that was a crazy time.
Oh, I remember the trauma like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, March for Medicare for All suddenly became a hot topic of debate, and we were getting punched down on for wanting Medicare for All, a position we thought we all agreed on. And then Force the Vote came, and then people really lost their minds. People were like, wait, you can't hold these politicians accountable. And we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's when a lot of the Bernie people. This is the thing that's crazy. This is I was critical of AOC. They was okay with that. It wasn't until me, Rome, and Fred Hampton left us at the time. We came out publicly in support of Force the Vote. We had Jimmy Dore on. Remember, we had Jimmy Dore on. And he was explaining why Force the Vote, and people was against it. And they was kind of like, it was like, we lost RBN. You remember seeing them? We lost RBN, and that's when like they went on attack mode. That when Tim Black started going after me. I was getting attacked by the people, but you guys know me. I'm down for the heat. When a lot of people would drown in these situations, I thrive, and I build my platform on that. I'm like, bro, I'm down. I am right, and I will stand here against all you motherfuckers and explain to you why I'm right. And you gotta know my mindset. Once again, it was a very interesting time. A lot of people who follow me recently don't really know, but I'm not. People think I'm just against Hassan and these people for no reason. I know these people. I was around these people. That's why I'm blacklisted. They pretend I don't exist. They all used to prop me up when I was in South Carolina, when I was reporting for George Floyd. I am considered like I betrayed the Bernie movement. You know what I mean? So yeah, Sam, all of them used to follow me. They will never admit it. Like 80% of them blocked me, and then they just pretend I don't exist. And I've seen how they move. It's me and y'all don't know this, so y'all don't understand why me and Zoya call these people out like this. But I know how these people move, and I do not trust their intentions after being on the inside for so long. But go ahead, Zoe. I give you last thought. You guys know Monday is a very chatty day for me. Zoe, anything else you want to add as we wrap up? I'll let you close us out.
Yeah, well, Violin, this is why this channel is great. And that's kind of how this channel came about. It was all of these people fighting with us, and you can only say so much in a tweet or on Twitter. So Nick got all of these people together, and it gave us a long format to express all of these points of view, to present receipts, to support our points of view. Because this wasn't personal. They were trying to make it personal, but it wasn't personal. We just were promised that if we support these candidates with grassroots funds, that corporations won't own them, and we will. But the moment we try to hold the very people we got into power accountable, all of these people turned on us because they're invested in the system. They profit from this system. And that's why they are always going to side with power and against us. And it's our job to expose these people because of what we know. It's an obligation to the working class to speak truth to power. So as always, my friends, my comrades, remember that you guys are all powerful. Don't believe anything that the establishment tries to tell you. We will win. We can win. We must leverage our labor and our numbers. Organize your communities now, and generationally, we will always conquer the ruling class. Please support the channel. Make sure that you are following us on all platforms: X, Telegram, Twitch, Rumble, and Kick, as well as the bonfire link below in the description. 100% of the funds will go to Gaza funds, which you can support directly, or you can buy anti-imperialist merch through Bonfire, RBN, and 100% of the proceeds will go to them. We will be back on Wednesday 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell. Always love and solidarity.